WBEE HD2 and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
2 hours of sports talk excellence here in the Flower City. You found us. Tell a friend, like and subscribe, do all that stuff. My name is Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester, inviting you to put up a stool and join us here at 866-4326. That's area code 585-866-4326. As we roll into day number 2 of legal tampering, and we're waiting for the Bills to do things in terms of bringing in personnel today. We'll get to the Bills' notes as they did have some housekeeping to do here in terms of cleaning up the cap. I don't think they're done in that regard, but we can talk about what they did do today. We will discuss this with Matt Perino. Matt Perino, Shout Podcast, Syracuse Post-Standard. He'll be coming up at the bottom of this hour as I think we'll have news today, pretty much, whether it's the Bills or NFL related, to react to in real time here is, again, the league year doesn't begin until Wednesday. We know this, but a lot of things happening here behind the scenes. So we'll get the thoughts of Matt Perino and what he's hearing coming up at the bottom of this hour. It's like Trey Hendrickson and some of these other Denver guys, they're all sitting out there. That linebacker from Kansas City that played for Jim Leonard, he's still sitting out there. 2 o'clock hour today, we will talk to Michael Leone. Mike Leone, head coach of the Rochester Americans, is, there's time to turn this ship around, right? The team gets 3 games this week. 2 of them are at home. And considering that you finish out the season in April, 6 of the last 7 on the road, this would be a good weekend to get things going. And considering the Amerks play Utica, a team chasing them in the standings, that's tomorrow night here on WGR Rochester. That's not a 2-point game, that's a 4-point game. That's a 4-point swing. So you can really kind of push Utica down and not concern yourself with the Comets. We'll talk to Michael Leone. Of course, there's been some personnel moves for the Amerks. We'll discuss this with Coach as well. That's coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. We'll have Terrible Take Timmy's Take of the Day as well. And again, your calls at 866-4326. Quite often, you can change your opinion. And I think we're free to change your opinion when it comes to sports talk. When we get new information or you just learn something, that's the fun of having like a sports debate, right? This isn't heavy stuff. I can help change your opinion, or maybe you say, Gene, you're wrong on this. That's the fun part. But here's something I'm going to say right now that really my opinion cannot change on, and that's this, that the Buffalo Bills have to go all in. 2026, 2027, maybe 2028. And there will come a day in 2028, maybe it's 2029, where you will look at the cap and be like, jeepers, what the heck? Why did you extend this guy? What was this signing about? We can't do anything. We can't compete. We have Josh Allen. Maybe he's on the back half of his career, and we can't do anything. And that's the price the Bills are paying. Now, I could be wrong in this regard. Maybe the cap will, like we think it grows now, maybe the NFL in their next TV negotiations, and you could read up on this because they're already beginning apparently, they strike huge deals and the cap will explode. And, it's like writing off bad debt. No problem at all. The thing I'm not going to move the goalposts on is this. Is that when we get to 2028, and if I'm still lucky enough to be doing this with you here in the Flower City, I'm not going to say, oh, the Bills shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have. No, we see this down the road at this pace, that they're going to be tough decisions. And one of those tough decisions today, the Bills could have said, you know what, maybe it's better we don't take this hit in 2028 or 2029 or whenever it is. Dawson Knox is a fine tight end. I don't know the numbers here on Dawson Knox and what he agreed to, but I'm going to guess they're not favorable to Dawson Knox. He's back for another 3 years, and I don't know if this was a game of chicken or not, but I'm sure it was an unpleasant conversation when you got to ask somebody to take a pay cut. Maybe you can make it up in incentives. But you have a tight end 1 in this team in Dalton Kincaid, and you have a tight end 2, and you could say you have a tight end 3 in Jackson Hawes. Dawson Knox is back with Buffalo. And the baseline is this. Are the Bills a better team in 2026 with or without Dawson Knox? The answer is pretty simple. Dawson Knox, they are a better team with him as a tight end too. You don't know what is behind door number 2 here, right? You don't want to have to go into the draft thinking, oh my gosh, we got to go find a tight end or whatever it is. Dawson Knox brings those intangibles. I know that he's not the complete, well-rounded tight end, but he's somebody that you can rely on, somebody who, gosh, in a playoff game against Miami, had 2 touchdown receptions. So I do think this is the right move. But again, I'm not going to be someone here that's going to wave my finger if Brandon Beane is still calling the shots in 2028 and saying, see. And I've seen the different opinions on this. Like our buddy Tim in San Diego running in, Beane doing it again. Knox is Matt. That's fair. That would have been a tough decision. The Bills did make one tough decision, in my opinion. That was Taron Johnson. I think Taron Johnson was coming off a year by his standard. That wasn't it, right? But he's going to be 30. And the defense is going to be a little different next year. And we were wondering, that was really kind of the big offseason question. What kind of personnel would Jim Leonard kind of want here? And you didn't save all that much with Taron Johnson. You really didn't. That would have, it'll save you next year, I suppose. But $1.9 million this year, that's not really all that much in terms of savings. What the Bills did do is they got somebody else that they believe is a better fit personnel-wise than D. Elford. D. Elford, former Winnipeg Blue Bomber. And if this doesn't have Buffalo DNA, and this would have been a McDermott guy, right? Somebody that comes out of D2, Tuscaloosa. Has anybody even heard of Tuscaloosa? Not me. So Tuscaloosa to the CFL, to working your way onto the Atlanta Falcons roster, to being their nickel back, right? But as you kind of dig in, Taron Johnson was a starter on this Buffalo Bills team. The Bills didn't run 3 linebackers. They didn't. That's why Dorian Williams couldn't find the field half the time, right? You when healthy, it was Milano and Bernard. Well, I think it's going to be different this year, meaning you're going to see more 3 linebackers. You're going to see a linebacker in there that you don't have to worry about your defensive back taking on a running back moving downhill like Taron Johnson. Taron Johnson, when he was at the top of his game, you could say he was the best at his position. That's the definition of all-pro. He was an all-pro, first team. But things change, and I'm hoping that Taron Johnson can bring it for the Raiders. But in this defense, though, didn't seem like they needed 3 downs from Taron Johnson. Also, Taron Johnson, too. You can't exactly bounce him out the corner. I don't recall any time that Taron Johnson was playing the corner position. That's not his strength. It was kind of lining up on the slot on the inside. So that's another thing that, okay, skill set didn't exactly fit. Not a problem with this. So the Bills doing something that I didn't think we saw going into the offseason. Maybe some did, but all right. So we'll see how this looks with D. Alford now. Other Bills news today, Tyler Bass, you want to be here? Sign right here. That's kind of the message they gave to him. Bass will take a pay cut this year. $3.85 million he was to make, and that will now go down to 2.45 to be exact. The bottom line is it's going to save the Bills $1.92 million against the cap. And I would say this, Tyler Bass, by doing this too, that doesn't mean he's on this roster. Sports hernia, you would hope, okay, can he recover? Clearly he wasn't right last year. You're out of camp, general soreness was what they said. Well, why didn't they just say sports hernia? Kind of funny. They were just kind of going to the NHL, He wouldn't tell you what the injury was. But for a kicker that, couldn't recover in a timely fashion, and I don't think anybody complained about Matt Prater, although there was a stretch there in December where Prater wasn't available. But Prater did just fine for the Buffalo Bills when he went back to Denver, made the kicks he was supposed to make. Can Tyler Bass kind of return to form? That's going to be one of these offseason storylines. I would suggest, and I'm sure the Bills will do this, you have to bring in legit competition for Tyler Bass. They didn't do that last year. They haven't done it in the past. So that's something that if you're looking forward to camp, and a lot of people are at Fisher, Tyler Bass and the competition, sure. This is a contract that you can get out of if you can find somebody that would be a little bit better. 866-4326. Matt Perino of the Shout Podcast, Syracuse Post-Standard, will be joining us here at the bottom of the hour. And as always, in case there is breaking news here, Terrible Take Timmy will be helping us out here. As I'll put Timmy on camera for everybody watching there on YouTube as Tim waves to the camera. And we'll have his Terrible Take of the day coming up a little later this hour. So one kind of neat thing, and I made a joke about this online. I said basically, hey, for Connor McGovern, you make all this money. You should buy all your teammates, invite them all to your pizza party. Connor McGovern knows exactly what media members are all about today. Comes out with boxes and boxes of pizza. I don't know if it's pizza he made or he brought in, but he bought the media room in Buffalo lunch today. And who doesn't love a free lunch, right? So Connor McGovern back with the Buffalo Bills. And it was kind of a surprise. McGovern talking about re-signing with Buffalo.
It's just been a whirlwind. So all of last year we're in talks, tabled it, had a great extra interview, kind of talking. We were on the same page that Bean was going to let us test free agency, and then things all of a sudden in the last couple of days really changed, and we hit a number that we were very happy with, my family and I, and we're just happy to be back in Buffalo.
Yeah, considering all the money the guy got out in Vegas, Lindenbaum, okay, kind of looks like a bargain, right? Well, Connor McGovern has been a lot of change since we last heard from him. Certainly a new head coach. It's going to be a new look. McGovern on that.
I think overall we're in a better spot. I think Joe brings a nice new fresh breath of air. Certainly brings the energy. And fun fact, now this is going on 10 years we've been together. So my freshman year at Penn State was his first year as a GA. So we've come a long way in 10 years. But I'm very excited. Had Aaron Cromer retire, so that's a big change for the offensive line. But good thing we get to keep 4 out of the 5 guys. We're going to miss Dave, but he's going to do a great job down in New Orleans. I'm excited to see him do that. We got Pat Myers, offensive line coach, that's worked with Cromer, so a lot of the same thing, presence there. And then we get to keep Austin Gunn. So he's been under Cromer for the past few years. So a lot of new faces, but overall, I think a lot of things still stay the same.
Yeah, coming out of Penn State in 2018, of course, Dallas takes him in the 3rd round. I don't know why he couldn't crack the starting lineup when he was out there. You go back and read the reports, the Cowboys didn't expect he would leave. He did, and he comes to Buffalo, and you remember that first year, he wasn't the center. Mitch Morse was still there. He's a left guard, and it was one of those, okay, is this going to work with McGovern center? Yeah, and then you realize, okay, Connor McGovern came over here for that purpose. He's still just 28 years old. So you're going to get, you would think, the best football still ahead here for Connor McGovern. And that is, of course, if he's healthy.
Physically, this is the best I felt in years. Luckily, I did have some injuries last year, but luckily most of it was just stuff that needed time. So during the season, that sucks because you don't have the time you need, but off-season, able to get ahead of that. It's nice being down in Florida, enjoying the sun. I think a lot of vitamin D really helps, and just catching up on sleep. But overall, this is probably the best I've felt in the last at least 3 or 4 years. So I think I'm in a good spot right now.
So that's Connor McGovern. Lions signing Isaiah Pacheco, well, maybe we'll get the thoughts of coming up next hour. Mike Leone. I appreciate we'll just put out who's coming up on the show today, and on X right now. And I can't read all this, but this is it seems like that Novikov trade went over like a lead balloon. Oh, excuse me. It's not a trade. We're loaning you this player, and they're loaning us whatever. He's not here, right? And he's over there. And if you really wanted Novikov on the team, you're not loaning him to somebody else. The whole thing is kind of weird to me. But we'll get the thoughts of Mike Leone. But the disclaimer is, right, and in case you didn't know, Mike Leone doesn't make the personnel decisions, right? But I'm just curious, like, did Novikov want out? Are we sure on that? Was that the reason? And if Leone gives us kind of a non-answer, all right, well, then maybe that's what we would have. 866-4326. Matt Perino coming up in a little bit, of course. We have a hockey game tonight. I am going. I am fired up for this. And I'm fired up because I'm taking my son. And my son now is 20. His fandom has been in a place of not even knowing what this team is like when they could be a legit contender. And sure, we had some fun times. There was a 10-game winning streak in November, and then they did it again the following year, and then the Devin Levi year where you were competitive in March, but nothing like this. Nothing like kind of what we grew up with, right? And depending on where that started, for me, the Fog game, that's a little bit before my time, but that set the table for a lot of people and their lifelong love affair with that franchise. For me, I was in attendance. I was actually in the visiting locker room working that night, smoke-filled where the Dallas Stars take it, and this is before video-assisted replay or anything like that, and just kind of the, oh my gosh, did Dallas just steal the Stanley Cup, and how that went to no goal, and that was Lindy Ruff as the head coach, and that was a Sabre team that way overachieved. Absolutely overachieved. All-world goalie. You could say best player in the game at that time, but other than that, though, it was just a team that worked its tail off, and the city identified with that Sabre team. Then you can skip ahead to, well, hey, we're in a lockout, and this really kind of sucks here in the NHL, but you could see the team in Rochester marinating. Wasn't that fun? Ryan Miller and Jason Pominville and those guys, that was a really fun era, Amherst hockey. It was kind of disappointing that they went out in the second round that year. But then when the lockout ends, the team goes up, and it's a collection of young talent. Does this sound familiar? That all of a sudden, and I don't know, if Jay McKee doesn't get hurt or infected or whatever you want to say. Like, if he's available that game 7, well, the point is, like, all right, then after that, what? What? Suffering and a tanking plan that's just disastrous? Well, it leads us to tonight, where the Sabres are coming off of one of their biggest regular season wins in franchise history. Recency bias, disclaimer, blah, blah, blah. Argue against that in your favor if you think I'm wrong on that. Like, you went toe-to-toe with a team that's perennially a Stanley Cup contender, a team that was ahead of you in the standings earlier in the season. Now you're ahead of them. And I think it's just setting up for an awesome second-round matchup against Tampa Bay. Tonight, San Jose. And I put this out there earlier on X. And this is true. For whatever reason, probably the reason is this, right? San Jose came in as an expansion franchise, cross-pollination, if you remember that. It was actually some Minnesota star players, and it was strange. They weren't very good. In fact, they were terrible at the outset. It's a team that comes in from the West Coast, and like they are tonight, they're beginning their trip. All-time in Buffalo, Sabres are 21-4-0-1 against San Jose. On home ice. 21-4-1, essentially. And I had people, including Stacey Pedgen, right back. Shh. Hey, I'm not jinxing anything. I know hockey people, superstitious. You can't mention that. Look, and again, this year's Shark team and this year's Sabre team really didn't have much to do with that all-time record, but I just think it's kind of interesting to kind of point out. But all that being said, you know how hockey works. Like, would it surprise anybody that we get to the third, entering the third, and it's a 1-1 game tonight? This is another test for Buffalo in a different sort of way, where you're coming off this amazing emotional high. that you did it. Now you can beat anybody in this league. And if this were a team of, I don't know, AA travel team, high school, whatever, you could say, okay, here's where the letdown happens. These are professionals. I don't anticipate that. For one reason, it's this goalie rotation, which, look, you could say UPL don't give up 7 goals. I'll listen to that, but by and large, it has worked this year. So when you have that, you just kind of sit up a little more straight. You want to play for the next guy coming in. That would be Alex Lyon tonight getting the start. And we'll have that coverage for you tonight beginning at 7 o'clock here on WGR Rochester. Somebody who has been with us since he returned to Western New York is Matt Perino. Does a fantastic job on the Shout podcast. You can read his work on the Syracuse Post-Standard. We'll get his thoughts on what the Bills have done, where do they sit for the cap, and what could happen. I think that most people are kind of curious about. Again, your calls also later at 866-4326. My name is Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester.
update.
Sabres hockey tonight here on WGR Rochester as they look to continue their winning ways against San Jose. Tage Thompson knows that Macklin Celebrini and the upstart Sharks provide a challenge.
He's an unbelievable player, so that's basically going to be our MO tonight. Is they got a lot of good young skilled players over there, and you give guys like that time and space, they're going to make plays and they're going to make you pay. So just want to make sure that we're being physical on them, taking away time and space, no free ice.
7 o'clock for the coverage here tonight on WGR Rochester. The Amerks are home tomorrow night against Utica. Head coach Mike Leone will join us next hour. Day 2 of legal tampering in the NFL, and the Bills taking care of some business today. Tyler Bass coming back at a reduced salary. Also restructuring is tight end Dawson Knox. Matt Perino joining us next. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, WGR Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
I think doing 2 hours is difficult. But, we have a format where we take commercial breaks. I get to break every little bit. Matt Perino doing it 2 straight hours, 5 guests yesterday, no breaks, breaking news. And he's good enough to join us a few minutes. The Shout podcast, thoroughly enjoyed it yesterday. Matt, how are you this afternoon?
I am doing great, buddy. Just getting back from One Bills Drive. Got a chance to hang out with Connor McGovern for a little while after his deal over the weekend. It's been kind of a ho-hum, pretty quiet free agency for the Bills over the first day and a half as they kind of figure out their cap situation. But the Knox thing should trigger maybe a few more levers, and then I think once you get to tomorrow, when they can onboard more and then restructure that thing, you'll see some more room for being to maybe start really adding.
Yeah, I guess that's where we're at. My head is kind of spinning. I saw the numbers reported for Bass, and I don't think that should come as a surprise. Haven't seen anything on Dawson Knox. So let's start there, because I could listen to the counter argument that, for tight end 2, regardless, maybe was it a time for a change there. But your thoughts on Dawson Knox and what he'll bring back here, and what you would figure would be on the second half of his career here, Matt?
I was open to all outcomes, to be really honest. Like when it came to whether you restructure and push something down the road, that would have been my least favorite option. The extension, which is what they ultimately landed on, which, my guess is, some of the reporting around this is that, the Bills were getting worried that they weren't going to be able to land on a resolution, probably would have forced them to release Dawson Knox. And it's a great unknown depending on his market and if you can onboard that back on. So it must be a significant, salary cap reduction. At least, or the amount that he's making is probably going considerably down. I don't mind this outcome because I still think there's question marks with your starter. And it doesn't come down to talent. Dalton Kincaid is one of the most talented tight ends in the NFL. It's why the Bills traded up to draft him a couple years ago. But when you're talking about 2 straight seasons where he's missing significant time or affected for significant periods of the season with this knee issue, I don't think you can go into next year counting on that. And somebody messaged me, we have an insider text group where we talk to some fans on a more personal basis, and somebody said, well, what's the issue with just going with Jackson Hawes as your backup? And I said, I don't really have a big problem with Jackson Hawes if he's your number 1 backup, but if you can have a Dawson Knox, a guy that had 9 touchdowns in a season a couple years ago that got paid the way that he did on the second contract, former 3rd-round pick. I mean, Dawson Knox, they don't just grow on trees in the NFL. So, listen, you can always have find a guy that could be a backup to Dalton Kincaid and be probably plenty happy with that. But when Kincaid's been out and their ability to go to Dawson Knox, I think that gives you a starting caliber tight end that I don't necessarily know if they would have been able to find with their limited resources had Dawson Knox not been able to come to this resolution.
Yeah, I just look at it simple. I'm not going to move the goalposts in 28 or 29, Matt, when we say, oh my gosh, look at how the Bills cap situation is bad. And again, maybe these new TV contracts it'll just wipe away debt, if you will, here, but it's not. I'm not concerned. This is the window. This is it. The next 2 years, get it done. And the Bills are they a better team? Yes or no? With Dawson Knox as your tight end too. The answer, in my opinion, is yes. Matt, I wanted to ask you about McGovern because you just heard from him. How did we get from a place this time last week where, gosh, apparently they're not hearing anything, maybe this looks like this time is ending, to, oh no, we're going to get a deal done. And actually, from the way it kind of looks, Matt, I think it's fair to say that's a team-friendly deal that Connor McGovern took.
It's a very team-friendly deal. I think given the Linderbaum number, if McGovern was still kind of sticking out there late last night, he might have been able to command like 22 million per season, just knowing how scarce the resources are at that position on the free agent market. So for Brandon Beane to get him back at 13 million per season, I mean, that's, maybe recapturing some of that big baller Beane status among some of the fan base. But listen, I thought there was a good chance that both of those guys could be priced out. I think getting one of them back, Edwards on his way now to New Orleans, gives you some sustainable level of play moving forward. I mean, that center position, going back to Josh Allen's rookie season, remember, I can't even, the guy's name is escaping me. They had a guy playing center during Josh's rookie year. Oh my God, I'm so mad that I'm forgetting his name. But they quickly realized they needed to upgrade that position. Went out, they signed Mitch Morse, who was here for 5 years. And then they flip over to Connor McGovern 1 year after he played guard for them. And they knew, because Eric Cromer was here, that he could play center. So I think getting that done, as much as I would have liked to have seen the Cedric Van Pran Granger arc pick up some steam if they didn't make a big move at that spot, and they drafted him in the 5th round. Everything that we've heard about him inside the building and back through the draft process was how much they were high on him. I don't think there's a lot of guard flexibility, but you do need a backup center. Like, Connor McGovern was tough and played through a couple of injuries last year, but if you were to miss any time, having a Van Pran Granger on the roster is something that a lot of teams, that's a luxury that not everybody has, especially if you like them. So, yeah, I didn't take too much of some of the dramatics of last week with, some of the comments from McGovern and then the Bills coming back to the table. I think from what I heard in Indy, the idea was letting him go to free agency, figure out his value, and then come back to the table. And, the fact that the story from TG, the incomparable Tim Graham, got the Bills to the table, I think yielded what is now the ultimate outcome for the Bills. They get back their franchise center, and they didn't have to really overpay at all to do it.
Well, our fine producer, Tim Schneider, came up with 2 names here. And I don't know and these are both names for like, oh my gosh, I forgot these guys. Russell Bodine, or was it Ryan Groy?
It was Groy. Ryan Groy. Oh my God, that dude, God bless him, was just terrible at football. And if they would have gone one more year, that dude protecting their franchise quarterback, number 7 overall pick, we would have had a huge issue amongst Bills fans.
Bills names you forgot about with Matt Perino, Shop Podcast, Syracuse Post Standard, our guest. Matt, I guess we didn't all have a defensive back, your new nickel back on this team named D. Alford. Your thoughts on this player and how he may fit into the Jim Leonard defense?
So, you mentioned watching our live podcast yesterday. I had to do some research in the moment as we're streaming because this is not a name that was on any radar in terms of somebody that the Bills were going to really have interest in. I didn't even think that the position would be something that they would strike at early in free agency. But I think, to me, what this tells me is this is a specific fit, because over the years, I mean, we just talked about Edwards and McGovern. Those were guys at the beginning of free agency in 2023. Nobody was really thinking about those positions or those players, and they were kind of afterthoughts. They were, okay, they could come in, they compete for jobs,
Edwards had the concussions issues. Like, we weren't really talking about them, and now we look back over the last 3 years, and they were critical pieces for this team. I think Bean has a track record of finding guys early that maybe surprise people that they have a vision for. And, I love Taron Johnson, but there was a drop-off in his level of play last year. There's concern with his ability in coverage to hold up against some of these younger, speedier receivers and slot options and running backs and all these things. They're going to play a lot more man coverage under Jim Leonard. That was a staple of the Denver Broncos defense. And if you think back to Alford, who was playing at Division II back when Jim Leonard was a defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, maybe this was somebody in recruiting circles that made a little bit of noise. I mean, the fact that, he ends up going to the CFL and then finally breaks through and gets a shot with the Atlanta Falcons. This has been a guy that has been really breaking through the mold here year after year, opportunity after opportunity. And this is the next iteration of that. He wasn't a starter in Atlanta last year. He played a ton of games, played a lot of snaps, but it was because guys went down. Terrell went down early in the season on the outside, and then Bowden went down their nickel corner for most of the second half, and he was able to kind of fill in. He picked off Josh Allen in the Falcons game against the Bills when the Bills had that big disappointing Monday Night Football game. So a lot of excitement. One of the things I love the work that the guys do over at Cover One, Eric Turner, Greg Tomset, Aaron Quinn, that crew, Anthony Prohaska. Eric put out a little scouting report on D. Alford yesterday, and one of the first things that he talked about was his quick feet, his sticky feet, his quickness in coverage. And to me, that's all the highlights you see when you bring his name up on social media. Like, some of the interceptions are his reaction time. And that's going to be really important in Jim Leonard defense. He asks his boundary corners to play a ton in man coverage. And when they do that, even when they go zone, you need guys that can, trigger quickly, can recover quickly. And it feels like that's what they're going to ask this guy to do. We won't really know his full role until we get to talk to Jim Leonard or Brandon Beane maybe as early as next week or maybe even later this week. But I have a feeling this could be one we look back at as a really important signing for this new Leonard defense.
Yeah, I mean, I see, like the knock, maybe he doesn't defend against the run. But here's my question, Matt, is we're kind of trying to envision what this new defense would look like. Opponent has it 1st and 10 to start off on their own 35. Previously, the Bills would be starting with Taron Johnson. They would be starting in what you would call a nickel defense. Will we see the Bills out there with 3 linebackers instead more often than not, in your opinion?
I don't know. I think it's going to be the takeaway that I had from Brandon and Jim is like there's just no traditional box that you're going to be able to put this defense into. So the idea there is, depending on the matchup at any given week, you could see a bunch of different personnel packages that set the defense up best to defend that specific team. Like when you're going up against a mobile quarterback that you have to account for in the running game, like a Lamar Jackson or a Jalen Hurts, it's going to look a lot different than when you play Matthew Stafford or Jared Goff. And so I think what they're going to try to do over the next couple of weeks and months is build the kind of roster that gives Leonard options for interchangeability to be reactive to matchups as opposed to consistently being forced to play your scheme because of the personnel. Like, they play nickel because Taron Johnson was arguably one of their best players. And when he was off the field, they just didn't match up as well against teams, even when they were able to run the ball, because he was a better tackler than their 3rd best linebacker. Where I think what you're going to see with Leonard's defense is they're going to try to put together a competitive enough roster that isn't as much of a factor when they go into different matchups. And listen, they might not be great against the run early on as they kind of cycle through some guys. You can make the argument that Denver wasn't very good against the run. I mean, James Cook, he ran all over them in the playoff game. So that's something that's going to obviously be a concern, but I think it's going to be about taking the ball away. Denver did that as much as anybody last year. The Bills did it pretty well the last couple years before 2025. So maybe it's about getting back to that as a big time part of their identity.
Yeah, and maybe part of that too is the personnel. And this is the part, Matt, where everybody's like, get to Matt's opinion on what should happen from here on in. There's a lot of names out there, Matt. Of course, Trey Hendrickson, by last check, still sitting out there. So put your sunglasses on. You are Brandon Beane here. And again, so many moving pieces, right? We don't know how much cap space, and we don't know what might be coming up next in that regard. But assuming there is going to be some space, what would be some things you would like to see the Buffalo Bills do here when this officially starts tomorrow?
Yeah, I think you're going to probably see them get really aggressive at the spine of their defense. I think you got to add a difference maker at defensive tackle, whether that be somebody that's going to be a part of the rotation or somebody that can play a little bit more of that, prototypical nose. I know that, they feel they have nose tackles on their roster, and maybe even Deion Walker fits into that, and that's very possible. But there's some guys out there that I think you can get really excited about if you're the Bills. One name is Sebastian Joseph Day, that they've been even linked to going back to the McDermott era. They had worked him out at one point before he ended up in Tennessee. He's probably one of the top remaining prizes at the position. I think at edge rusher, the pickings are going to be slim, but is there anybody out there that they can bring in just to add to the rotation? I think the one good thing is on defensive line, edge rusher specifically, it is absolutely loaded in the draft. It's a deep draft. I think you could probably get a third rounder and a fourth rounder in the draft this year that are comparable to probably what's left in free agency right now. Obviously much younger, and you're going to have to develop them. But, I think one of the big things for me in the shift Jim Leonard is, can you start to develop some of these draft resources that the Bills just haven't done a great job of? And that's all I'm saying, that while thinking that A.J. Epinesa has been a solid player for them, role player for them over the years. But, you think about Boogie Basham, you think about, Dwayne Carter had the injury, but even in year one, it was a little bit less than probably of an impact that you'd want from a third-round draft pick. They got to start hitting on some of these resources in the draft. And I think this is the year where edge, linebacker too, I think they could probably go out and bring in a Leo Chenal. I think it's exciting for Bills fans that he hasn't signed anywhere yet. I know Singleton and Sternad were two guys from Denver that a lot of Bills fans were hoping for. They signed back with the Broncos. Chenal's one guy that I think you could see them maybe make a run at. And then beyond that, at safety, probably a name that we really weren't talking a ton about. Some of the top safety names are off the market at this point. Reed Blankenship was the one that I really liked. He ends up going to Houston. Brian Cook from Kansas City signs with the Bengals. Don't look now. The Bengals have actually had a really good free agency period, signing a couple defensive linemen that are kind of going to reset things there up front, and then they bring in Cook to kind of run things on the back end. We know how good their offense is, and now they got a couple of playmakers on defense.
Yeah, a couple more for you real quick. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard Shout podcast. Reggie Gilliam leaves, and I think most Bills fans would say, I don't like that. Is it, and particularly where he went, does it signal in any way, though, that this offense could be evolving where you don't need to spend resources on that? Or might we see somebody like Jackson Hawes in a little bit of a different role? Your thoughts on the Bills losing Gilliam, Matt?
Yeah, I think evolution is always something that comes to the forefront of your mind when you think about a guy that's, played a career-high offensive snaps last year that's now not going to be in the mix moving forward, although I do think it's pretty wild to think about 6 seasons for Reggie Gilliam in Buffalo. He made $8.9 million, and the deal he signed on a 3-year deal with the Patriots is for 12. I know 6 of that is guaranteed, but, man, 6 guaranteed versus 8.9 total over the entirety of his run in Buffalo. He got paid. I mean, he's the number one fullback average annual salary in the NFL after that deal, and good for him. I mean, Reggie, the guy, you got to be thrilled for him. And I think in a perfect world, you love to keep all the Reggie Gilliams and the Mac Hollins, and even back in the day, like Tremaine Edmonds, who ends up going for $19 million. I know there was a frustration with him amongst some of the fan base, but that was a first-round draft pick that had some nice moments over the course of his career. Sometimes you just get priced out, and it's time to move in a different direction. And I do think that you can replicate what he did. You could probably bring in a fullback back and continue from a scheme perspective to have that impactful in the run game. But I also think what we've learned about Joe Brady early on is they lean heavy jumbo personnel with the extra offensive lineman in 24 and then completely erase that from their offense in 25 and lean into the 13 personnel package. What's the next shift? Maybe it's back to 2020 when he was in Carolina and they ran mostly 11 and 10 personnel and spread the ball around a little bit more in the passing game. You traded for DJ Moore. A lot of people are going to want him on the field. So I think there could be some changes with how they operate for sure.
Yeah, and Matt, real quick on the wide receivers, because DJ Moore is in. We're expecting the Bills to do something else, right? Whether that's, you got to wait till the draft, but what other options are out there? I saw Rager going to that was somebody you had brought up, like he goes to the Raiders. Are you surprised Evans went for as little or as he did to San Francisco? What might Buffalo do here? And maybe we have to wait until the second wave of free agency to find more competition at that spot.
I mean, with that report about Brian Thomas Jr., are you Brandon Beans floating Keon Coleman and a third-round pick this year for Brian Thomas Jr.? I would. I'd even give a third this year and maybe even a fourth this year and a third next year and what's believed to be an even better draft. That would be one really fun idea. Could you imagine the pivot from the wide receiver room last year to rolling out Khalil Shakir with DJ Moore and Brian Thomas Jr. to start the season, along with your tight ends and the best running back in the NFL, coming off of a banner year in 2025. That to me would be, pie in the sky, shoot for the stars type of thing, because at this point you're probably restricted to some of those rookie contract kind of players. I know you'd probably love to go out and trade for a Justin Jefferson, right? Like some type of dream scenario like that. But that's, significant salary cap constraints already. It'd be worse on the other side of that. And obviously Justin Jefferson is a franchise level player. And if that somehow came to fruition, I'm with you from what you said at the beginning. Cap be damned, right? Like down the road, we'll figure that out when you get there. One idea I don't hate, and I know Bills fans are listening, are going to be like, dude, do not sign this guy. Deebo Samuel is going to be hanging out there. And I just wonder if you can't get him on a super low money deal, try to limit his snaps in the regular season. I thought he had some juice in December for Washington, and they had some quarterback issues. You brought in Curtis Samuel a couple years ago to play like that Deebo Samuel light role. Why not just get the actual guy? And the problem there is, of course, you can't stay healthy. And it's every year you're just looking on the injury report, and it feels like he's always there. Another idea that I really like is Christian Kirk has a relationship with Josh Allen. Thought he was really good in the playoffs for Houston, mostly in the wild card round. We all saw what happened in the divisional round when C.J. Stroud just imploded. But I like Kirk a lot. I think there's some value there. He's an experienced receiver, has had a lot of really good seasons. Older, but I think you can get him on an affordable deal. Or maybe even Brandon Cooks again. I know some fans, it feels like, really don't want him back because of the drop issues and obviously the one big one that didn't go his way. But I thought what we saw from him in a limited sample size was enough to make me think, very modest investment in him coming back as wide receiver 4 or 5. Sign me up.
Oh, my gosh. How about 6? And then, all right, at this point of his career, I don't know how many options. And I thought Ryan brought up a good point, too, with Deebo Samuel. When that first started coming up, there were other options. The Bills fans were like, no, I'm with you on that. If you can get him at the right price, by all means. Matt, 2 hours yesterday, so get us set up. When do you hit the pod here again? What can we read on Syracuse.com?
Yeah, we'll probably roll again at some point today. I just got to get everything figured out in terms of, Bills news. We got the Knox stuff. I'm waiting for the numbers on that so we can kind of really dive into what that means. We'll do something at some point today. It's just, it's a very reactionary week. And yesterday we were waiting and waiting, nothing was happening. So finally I just said, hey, we're just going to go live, talk about everything. If something happens while we're going, great. But I'd imagine, we know Brandon Beane, I wouldn't be surprised if something goes down at some point over the next couple of hours.
Yeah, that's always the joke here. As soon as we get off the air, that's when it happens. Always does here.
Right.
Matt, appreciate the time on such a busy day. Thanks so much, bud.
Anytime. Take care, bud.
Matt Perino from the Shout Podcast, Syracuse Post-Standard, goes off into the ether space. We got Timmy's terrible take of the day. We have your calls at 866-4326. We can kind of react to that. We got other things happening. Isaiah Pacheco is a Lion. So we'll kind of recap everything as we are running here today. My name is Gene Battaglia on WGR Rochester.
So much action.
Weather. As temperatures rise, make sure that your energy bills don't. Keep those cooling costs low with Window Nation's high-quality, energy-efficient products. Simply request a consultation where their experts will visit your home, spot problem areas, and make recommendations. Your customized windows can be installed in a day, and once completed, your home will be shielded from outside hot air while you remain cool and comfortable inside throughout the spring and summer. With Window Nation, your house won't just look great, but you'll also have peace of mind. All of Window Nation's products are backed by a lifetime warranty. There's no better time to upgrade your home with Window Nation. In March, the more you buy, the more savings you could enjoy. Up to 50% off all window styles. And be sure to ask about Window Nation's generous financing options, including $0 down and payments as little as $199 a month. Visit windownation.com for your free consultation today. That's windownation.com.
Spring is just around.
Sabres tonight taking on San Jose. What a world we live in. Because if you go back 3 months, roughly, right, it was December 9th. Sabres' worst team in the league, and that's when it all happened. Now everybody has visions of Stanley Cups dancing in their head. 7 o'clock tonight against San Jose. Let's see if the Sabres can avoid the L word. I'm not talking loss. Well, I could say loss, but letdown. That was the L word we're looking for. 866-4326. Our fine producer, Tim Schneider. Here is his terrible take of the day.
Another L word. What a lead-in, because that's right where I'm going with it. How the Sabres respond to what happened on Sunday, the greatest game possibly in Buffalo Sabres history. 8-7, 15 goals, 100 penalty minutes, one of the most entertaining hockey games you can ever watch. What happens next is what matters most. If they don't react, there's going to be an energetic come down from that game. It's not possible to stay that high. But the result in which happens tonight and Thursday, these next two games, if they can get to 8, 9, 10-game win streak, again, will dictate what happens the last 18 or 16 games, whatever is left in this season, into the playoffs. Now they're making the playoffs.
I don't know. It's hockey, number one,
yes.
Right? Hockey you could have weird things happen, puck bounce here or there. I'm like, how many times we talked to Mike Leone, like, hey, you lost the game. Yeah, you know what? I like the way we played, in that third period. And Matt Thomas, RIT, you lost the game. Hey, Al, I like the way we played. Your eyes will tell you tonight. And I'm saying that Pittsburgh game might have been a lesson. That Pittsburgh game, I'm not talking about the one in Pittsburgh. I'm talking about the one before the Olympic break where you saw this team and they look like half of them were thinking about warm weather at that point. And they're young. And Pittsburgh handed it to them. And that was the way. And the concern was, oh, boy, this was a lot of fun. How are they going to respond after the break? If the Sabres lose tonight, I'm not going to sweat it. They will lose. They will lose at some point, Tim. You don't want them to lose to Tampa Bay. You don't want them to lose. It is not going to be a winning streak where then you're just going to sweep your way through every playoff series. But we have the game for you tonight, 7 o'clock here on WGR Rochester.
6 o'clock pregame. Right?
That's right. Yeah, I've got to get used to recalibrate that. And if you see a guy walking around in RIT Sports Network gear tonight, that would be me. Say hello tonight. Amherst tomorrow night, taking on Utica, and we will have that call for you with Don Stevens and Andrew Mossbrooks. We'll talk to the head coach, Mike Leone, where sometimes things take off on X, and it seems like some Amherst fans are just not happy with the personnel decisions of this team. And I hear you, but you got to understand, Mike Leone isn't the decision maker. Those decisions come out of Buffalo. Yes, sure. They will ask for his opinion on things, and we'll ask for Mike's opinion coming up. That'll be at the bottom of the next hour. 866-4326. This is the Sports Bar here on WGR Rochester.
HD2 Rochester and everywhere you go at WGR Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. WGR Rochester. Sports Update.
Sabres hockey tonight here on WGR Rochester. Buffalo hosting San Jose. Sabres looking to make it 8 in a row tonight. Meanwhile, the Amherst home tomorrow night against Utica. Head coach Mike Leone will join us later this hour. Bills news today and nobody coming in. 2 veterans renegotiating. Tyler Bass, the kicker, agreeing to a pay cut that'll save $1.92 million. Also restructuring tight end Dawson Knox. We do not have the numbers available on that. Isaiah Pacheco, the running back, he leaves Kansas City. He now joins the Detroit Lions. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com, where today get a $50 certificate for half price to Lasertron in Henrietta. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com today. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
As we kind of explore and go through this journey of what it's going to take for the Bills to get over the top, I'm more and more saying, you know what, do everything possible. Welcome back in. When it comes to the cap, it's going to be brutal in a few years. I think we all expect that, but I'm not going to be the person, if I'm in this chair in 2028 or 2029 saying, oh, well, you made a mistake back then. You shouldn't have done that. No, like you're doing this just to get one. Just to get one. And it kind of along those lines, too, Matt Farino brought up an interesting idea. And again, there's so much, is this true? Is it real? How do these things start? But let's just take this trade rumor like if it's real. That the Bills would send Keon Coleman and a third to Jacksonville for Brian Thomas Jr. Would you do? Yes. Yes in a second. Absolutely. 100%. You would do that. But, Gene, that means you need look, you're not going to find a better receiver in round 3 than Brian Thomas Jr. And sure, the promise of Keon Coleman, that might be the price. Keon Coleman, over 2 years, year 3 should be like the deciding line, right? You want to know after year two, okay, is this somebody that you really want? And we didn't see that out of Keon for various reasons. You saw flashes. But slowly I'm turning into an all-in guy here. And Matt is maybe swaying my opinion a little on that. But the Bills need more at the wide receiver position, there's no doubt. And you're hoping that maybe through free agency, what can they do here? I think what's going on right now, if you're saying, okay, what happened with the Bills today? The answer is nothing other than, hey, we learned that Dawson Knox restructured, which is just a nice way of saying that he took a pay cut, right? These days you don't say somebody got fired. The Hawks fired their coach yesterday. No, he got relieved of their duties. I think there's a lot of that going on behind the scenes right now, and with all those moving parts, the Bills don't know exactly what they can offer some of these players. And maybe that's why there could be something big in the works. I don't know, but I think the Bills are not done yet. So as long as these players are still sitting out there, we're expecting news here coming up. We'll talk to Mike Leone as it's for as good as the Sabres are going. It's been a bumpy ride for the Amherst, but they're home coming up tomorrow night against Utica, and they're home against Toronto on Irish night, which is always kind of fun. In fact, this whole weekend is fun. I hope the weather forecast for Saturday improves just a little bit. I mean, when you were out this past Saturday, were you not thinking, oh, my gosh, what if this were the parade Saturday? We were all loving it. And there's one Saturday I remember last decade where it was like 72 degrees and sunny. I hope we get something nicer. But to me, it's kind of the kickoff of spring when you have that Amherst Irish night. We'll talk to Mike Leone coming up bottom of this hour. 866-4326. Williamson, Dr. Neal joining us. Hi, Neil. How are you this afternoon?
You know, St. Patrick was famous for driving the snakes mythically out of Ireland. I'm wondering what it's going to take to drive Brandon Beane out of office. But anyway, thanks as always for taking my call. Greatly appreciate it. So I did not hear your interview, but you kind of if that trade offer was thrown out, Keon Coleman and a third for Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, you not only run Keon Coleman to the nearest airport, you pay him first class to get out. Because we have seen that Keon Coleman is literally an unreceiver, right? He's in the Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is one of just the worst receivers. Couldn't catch, can't separate, and like the Mighty Ducks, wins jump balls on a 1 of 5 basis. So if that could actually happen, that would be great. But here's the thing that I think a lot of people aren't talking about, right? If you look at the other teams making big moves, right? The Rams trade for Trent McDuffie. They have two major weaknesses at corner, and they trade. And listen, the Rams have never been a first round draft pick that they kept. They get aggressive for the best player in Trent McDuffie. The Raiders traded 2 first-round picks to get one of the best defenders in the National Football League in Max Crosby. And what are we doing? We're re-signing Dawson Knox to, as you said, a pay cut, when in reality, the second contract that he signed wasn't worth the toilet paper that we wipe our ass with, okay? And we bring in a cornerback, D. Alford, who's okay, but he's also the third worst tackling cornerback in the National Football League. And if we're going to improve our run defense, which was the worst in the NFL last year, is it a good idea to sign a corner? I know cornerbacks aren't supposed to be leading your team in tackles, of course. You're signing the third worst tackling cornerback in the NFL. We go from a 4-3 to a 3-4. We don't have 3-4 personnel. I mean, Ed Oliver's not a 3-4 D tackle. Deonte Walker is, but we don't have a 3-4 personnel in a year when we're supposed to be winning and going all the way to a Super Bowl. And once again, I coined the term bean washing and pigskin gaslighting for what's going on here. And look, the DJ Moore trade. We improved the wide receiver room, but giving up a second-round player for him was not value, unlike the Rams trading for Trent McDuffie, unlike the Raiders trading to the Ravens, Max Crosby. And once again, Brandon Beane bargain basement shopping of just trying to nibble around the edges because of a cap problem that he created and poor decision-making on the whole in the draft. And you talk about, like, the Bills getting closer to a Stanley Cup, and that's the objective goal for any sincere Sabres fan. The metric that we should be using, if you strip everything down to first principles, Gene, the question is are the moves Brandon Beane making getting us closer to a Super Bowl? And I would argue right now, at this point, while the DJ Moore trade, while not a perfect trade, does improve the team, I don't see a vision here. And as the good book says, when there is no vision, the people perish. I don't see a clear vision here for what Brandon Beane is trying to do that's getting us closer to a Super Bowl. Once again, the guy that created the wall that has prevented us from getting as far as we need to go, we are asking him to fix it. And in closing, let me say this. The Brian Thomas trade, if that were even possible, that would be something where I would come back on these airwaves and say, you know what, Brandon Beane, that's a good move. That's good management. The Eagles, even though they're losing all of these players because of, Jacoby Dean, et cetera, they have good management. The Saints, who are in perpetual cap hell, found a way to sign Travis Etienne. The Dolphins, who cut Tua Tagovailoa for $99 million dead cap, could still sign a quarterback. But this GM, once again, is showing that much like Sean McDermott reached the limit of his capabilities, Brandon Beane has reached the limit of his capabilities because both his in-box and outside-of-the-box reasoning just doesn't seem to be at the standard that we need as a general manager. It's a pleasure, as always, to speak with you. Good to talk to you in the 1 to 3 time slot. And thanks, as always, for taking my call.
Thank you, Neil. Lot to react to. Let me start here. Right, and I hear what you're saying, and look, we're not going to be the show that's going to wave pom-poms, right, for Brandon Beane. Go, Beane, go. Everybody put their sunglasses. Please, be critical. That's what we should do. It's only sports, right? And it's the team you have passion for, and there's been some mistakes, right? I'm going to give you a phrase that I tell some of our new advertisers sometimes, right? Because day number one, when you start off with us advertising here, what I want you to do is suspend your judgment, okay? It's not like somebody's going to hear and all of a sudden day number one. It takes some time, right? So suspend judgment here if you're a Bills fan, at least until we get to the end of free agency, because there are a lot of names out there. There are a lot of rumors. There could be other moves that would be made, right? So if you're ready to put Brandon Beane on blast, just hold on for a second. That's all I'm going to say, because we don't know what's coming behind door number 2 here. And maybe that is a wide receiver trade. Maybe it's the Trey Hendrickson. You bring up a good point, though, Neil, on the personnel, because when you, like, wait a second, Ed Oliver on the outside, and maybe as an end, all of a sudden he will flourish. Let me draw you an analogy, right? There was a forward in Buffalo who was struggling so much. He was sent down to the Amherst. And this is the year 2018. Like, wow, this guy is not, maybe he's not going to be good. He was a first-round pick. And then he goes back up, and the coach says, you know what, let's try a position change. Let's put him in center. Now he's one of the best centers in the game, in Tage Thompson. Sometimes you got to make a change, and maybe this is going to bring out the best in Ed Oliver. But to your point, do we have the personnel right now to run this? The answer right now is no. No, you need linebackers. I'm not so worried about Alford. And for the reason is this, because you're picturing him as playing the Taron Johnson role. D. Alford, I think, is going to be more of your nickel or maybe even dime back. Like, you're bringing him in and you see the numbers, but somebody that the Bills believe in his athleticism, and if he's back there, I don't think he's back there to tackle. He's back there to cover. So the Bills recognize we need another skill set. And Taron Johnson never covered on the outside. This kid can. I say kid, like he's been in the league here for a few years. Neil, thank you for the call. Appreciate that. As our fine producer, Tim Schneider, says here, WGR Rochester. We've had different names for the station over the years. We have poor people's cable.
Yeah, yes, we do.
We have poor people's cable. And I would just wonder, and maybe you're listening to our friends in WGR Buffalo, the WGR. Do you guys get the ACC network? Do you get other channels? Because I came in today like, hey, the ACC tournament's on. It's March. Oh, no, we can't watch it because it's not on. Well, we will be off the air by the time Syracuse hits the airwaves today, 4:30. Quick take on this. When does Adrian Autry get let go? Do they actually give it 24 hours? When we come on the air tomorrow, does Autry still have a job? Well, if the Orange win today, of course, yeah, he'll still have a job, at least for another day. Syracuse is a 14 seed in the ACC. Like, you're just barely hanging on at this point against, longtime rival Southern Methodist. Yeah, sarcasm. 4:30 today, the tip.
Solid ACC.
Yeah, solid ACC. Like Stanford and Pitt on now. Like things that don't make any sense in college sports, whatever. But the take is on Syracuse. And I go back to when Boeheim exited stage left. I thought for sure they would give it a beat. They would say season is over. It was stunning how quickly that team moved, where they lost when we went on the air, and by the time the show was over, the release was out that not only is Boeheim out, that Adrian Autry was taking over. Like, wow. And I was always left with the impression that Boeheim was doing everything he could right up until the 11th hour. I want to keep my job. I don't know that for sure, but that was the image he was giving off, thinking that, yeah, what if I did run the table here in the ACC tournament? You're going to get rid of me then? Well, the issue is that with the portal coming up, and it's not as brutal as it used to be, but you want to make moves, and you want to make sure you get things in place. And you thank Adrian Autry, and I would do this the next day. If Syracuse loses today, then tomorrow I would make the announcement.
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
Do not tell me they just made the announcement, but you have breaking news.
No, I do have Not that. That would be awesome, though. Couple things. Romeo Dobbs, Patriots,
Ooh.
and Geno Smith being traded from the Raiders to the New York Jets for a pick swap.
Oh, Jet fans, I'm sorry. Well, that's the definition of full circle. And Gino's like, what did I do to deserve this? I thought I left you guys. Like, well, hey, they'll be better, I suppose. Oh, my gosh. Dobbs to the Patriots. The Patriots aren't going away. They will still be kind of a thorn, which is fine. Get you to sit up straighter in your chair, right? Like if you're the Buffalo Bills going into this, like you did, like this time last year, we thought, yeah, that's right. They were picking fourth overall. That Patriot team is, look, everybody should sit up in their chair, sit up straight, get the job done for the division. Don't fart around for games in Miami or Atlanta or all these other games. You just kind of half-assed it. So, the point is about Geno Smith. I'm sorry, Jeff fans. I am really, really sorry. Actually, I'm sorry for Geno Smith. Thank you, Tim. We got Mike Leone coming up, head coach of the Rochester Americans, back home against Utica tomorrow night. That's not a 2-point game. That's a 4-point swing tomorrow night, potentially. We'll talk to the coach coming up next. My name is Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester.
So much action. Rochester Sports Update.
Sabres hockey tonight here on WGR Rochester. Buffalo hosting San Jose. Sabres looking to make it 8 in a row tonight. Tage Thompson certainly has respect for Macklin Celebrini.
He's an unbelievable player, so that's basically going to be our MO tonight. Is they got a lot of good young skilled players over there, and you give guys like that time and space, they're going to make plays and they're going to make you pay. So just want to make sure that we're being physical on them, taking away time and space, no free ice.
Amherst home tomorrow night against Utica. We'll talk to head coach Mike Leone next here in the Sports Bar. Buffalo Bills have yet to make a signing today. However, they did make some moves. Tyler Bass reportedly agreeing to a pay cut. Also, the team restructuring the deal for tight end Dawson Knox. Knox now under contract until 2028. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM, and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester.
Yeah, the Don Stevens World Tour continued over the weekend, where he goes up to Laval and gets another sweater to add to his collection. As we're happy to be joined by head coach Mike Leone. Good to have the Amherst back home this week. Tomorrow night against Utica, Friday night Irish night against Toronto. Mike, appreciate the time today. I hope you guys are giving Don the business here for this whole goodbye tour he's on here in the AHL.
Yeah, no, Donnie deserves it. It was a really cool moment, especially at that arena. Pretty incredible venue, and Don is he's meant a lot to our organization, our team, our staff, especially myself. Getting to know Donnie, I respect him a lot. He's probably one day he's going to have his a jersey of Don Stevens retired in this building, and it's well deserved. And it's been awesome to see just how much he is respected also throughout the course of the league.
We had some moves here on the roster. We'll get your thoughts on that in a second. But before we get to that, okay, Laval, you did get a point here, Coach. Where would you say we are in terms of getting to a comparison to Laval? If they're the measuring stick, how far does your team have to go here?
Well, I mean, you have to take into context like the things that have gone on here, the players that we lost. I think it's a lot different group than what we started with the course of the season. I mean, if you look at the game this weekend, other than the last 10 minutes of the Saturday game, we outshot them 37-21. On Friday night, we gave up 2 shorthanded goals. That was probably the difference in the game. But I thought for 5.5 periods, we were the better team. They did push extremely hard in the third period. Probably tilted the ice. The last 10 minutes of that game, had multiple opportunities, actually 4, to win it in a shootout. But I just think that when you're talking about a team like that, the depth of at each position, they have a really good young goaltender. I think he's, if sooner than later he'll be an NHL goalie. And you look at their backup goalie, Kakkonen took Charlotte to a final that year and was 2 wins away from a Calder Cup. They're just a really good hockey team. But I think if you look at just the course of the weekend, we played really well. A lot of guys, obviously with the trade that happened in Buffalo, you lose a player like Rosie. That's a big loss in your lineup. But a lot of guys with new opportunity did really well. And we played a really good hockey game. They're just a really good team. The margin for error is extremely small when you're playing someone like that. Just I'll give you an example. Like we had the chances 21-6 the first night, and they scored 4 goals. Now 2 of them were special teams, but they don't need a lot of chances to capitalize on their opportunities. They have a lot of vets that have played a lot of hockey at a high level. You look at Sammy Glaze, who's a Calder Cup champion, Stanley Cup champion. Dolphins played over 250 games in the NHL. Belzile, they're a really good hockey team. It's hard to say, how far you're away. When we look at the games of that we played this weekend, is it going to look the same way as our group that we had before? No, it's not. But if we compete and work hard and we're detailed in what we have to do for our team to be successful, you have a chance.
Mike Leone joining us here in the sports bar as the Amerks home tomorrow night against Utica, Friday night against Toronto. The trade, well, technically it's not a trade, right? It's you loaned Novikov to the Ontario Reign, and in return you get a forward in Caleb Lawrence. In judging by social media and everything, there's a lot of Amerks fans that kind of are questioning this move, Coach. Did Novikov want out?
I think there was, I'm not going to get into details about what was going on behind the scenes, but I think there was, new opportunity for the player in a different organization. And, sometimes with, players, the change of scenery is good. And, he got a new opportunity with Ontario. We wish him the best. And, Caleb is a young player, big centerman, and obviously right now that's a need for our group. And I just think it's good for both parties. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes in the room, and that a lot of people don't know about. So I think it's best on both parties. Hopefully the trade or loan will work out for both teams.
Well, fair enough. But Novikov was getting a lot of minutes, not just this season, but over the past. What kind of opportunity is this for somebody else on your blue line right now, Coach? Who might be somebody that might step up here?
Well, I just think he didn't play in our lineup this weekend, and our group played really well. I think at points of the season, I think if you just look at, if you go on the league prospects and you look at his points and things, there's a lot of different areas that that come into play. I think Noah Lown has played great for us when he's in the lineup. I think Fulper has played great for us when he's in the lineup. Guy Beliveau has done a great job coming in the lineup. Now these are young guys that haven't played in the league, but they've played really well for us. So we were looking for those guys to step up.
We're talking to Mike Leone. Amerks are home twice this week, which that's nice. You assigned a player today, Chris Douglas, PTO. We know the way this kind of works. Played his college hockey in Canada. Coach, tell us what this player is like and how much we might see of him this week here.
Yeah, he's going to play. I think going from the top, I think you've all listened to Yarmo talk to the group about the guys that we want in our organization, and really going into layers of calling people on kids, and he's going to play. You probably won't see him tomorrow night, but this weekend he was a 3-year captain of his Canadian university team. They have a coach that played in the NHL and the AHL for a long time. He played in Red Deer. He was a captain as well for Brent Sutter, who's been around the NHL a long time. He's big, he can skate, and, I think he'll help our group, and he's really excited to be here. But I also push guys on our team that, I've probably had down years or not lived up to how they need to play for us, so I think it's good for our group.
Yeah, you brought up Rosane, and I guess the final thought on somebody who is 22 and he still has all the potential in the world, and he's going to get some ice time in Winnipeg. Coach, did you break the news to him? Did you get to talk to him after the trade? Your thoughts on Rosie leaving the organization?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you have to look at the big club. I mean, at the end of the day, the Buffalo Sabres, and you want them, they're doing things that haven't been done here in a long time. So whatever they have to do in management to make their team better, I fully support. And at the same time, Rosie was a valuable asset to our organization, but you look at the pieces that we have back, it hurts our team. For sure, Rosie was a huge part of it. He's on pace for 45 goals and everything, but Rosie gave us everything he had here, and I'm happy for him to get the opportunity in Winnipeg to play. But at the end of the day, you look at at the Buffalo Sabres, and they got better. And obviously, it's our loss, but Rosie was great. He was great to work with. I really like him. I talked to him. There was mutual respect there, and I'm just happy for Rosie, but most of all, happy for our organization and the Sabres.
Yeah, Mike Leone joining us here, and one player who did stay, and I'm bringing up Devin Levi's name because there were reports, and I don't doubt that that there were teams calling here, but he remains here, Coach. So your thoughts on the Sabres just saying, no, we still believe in you, Devin. You're still going to be a part of this here at some point, and I guess the question is, because you want to have Devin Levi fresh and ready to go for what you're hoping is a long playoff run, how do you manage the workload the rest of the way, knowing that, all right, you need to get points here in these last 18 games or so?
I don't have any comment on the trade. I don't know what was going on. Maybe I have no idea. But as far as Dev, I think if you look at Dev in the last 6 games, we believe in Dev, but he also has to be better for our group. He's at a 4 goals against and an 87 save percentage. Like, part of the reason why we played, it's not been an easy year, but he's going to play. He gives us the best chance to win. We believe in him, so he's going to get a lot of starts going forward. And then, Rath's played a really good game last game. Probably deserves another start after how he played Saturday. He's played really good hockey for us. I know he's had a couple bad games. That's going to happen with a young kid, but we're going to play whoever we feel gives us the best chance to win.
Yeah, tomorrow night should be fun because this is Utica team. They need points. This is not a 2-point game. It's a 4-point game. You've got essentially tomorrow night. So your thoughts on a team that you know very, very well and what we can expect tomorrow night at the Blue Cross?
Well, they've won 9 out of 11. I've been saying it all year. They're a really good hockey team. They're fully healthy. They're fully they're a good team. They're a really good team. Like, if you just check the box scores, it's one thing, but they've won 9 out of 11. They're playing really good hockey. They've beat really good teams. They have multiple players down from the NHL, and every game like this is going to be tight the rest of the year. And they're playing really good hockey right now, along with a lot of other teams in our division. So we know what's at stake. We'll just it's one game at a time. We still got a long way to go, so it's really important for us to continue to get points in games and see where it goes.
Yeah, and then just to kind of wrap up, I think your Lions are winning the offseason so far. The Montgomery trade, but then I don't know if you saw this afternoon, they signed Isaiah Pacheco here, Coach.
You know what? I've been so busy. I didn't even know it was NHL. I honestly have no idea what's going on besides what's going on in the hockey world, but that's great.
Oh, fair enough. Well, thanks very much, Coach. We'll talk to you next week, and good luck tomorrow night and Friday and Saturday as well.
Thanks.
Thanks. Mike Leone joining us. And, that Novikov trade, again, technically not a trade if you're loaning, but that's also, it's a little odd. But I think we can read between the lines here. This is the best you could kind of do, and you're not cutting him, and then all of a sudden he's gonna, I'm here in Syracuse. No, that was a few years ago. Remember Cal O'Reilly? Cal O'Reilly pulled that, and then all of a sudden he pops up with the Marlies. Hated that. It shouldn't bother me that much, but that just rubbed me the wrong way. Yeah. You have somebody that for Novikov. He played in 68 games last season. He played in 8 playoff games the year before, 5. This is somebody that, okay, this is a core defensive player. What happened? And I respect Mike Leone for saying I don't know, but we will certainly. Yeah, if you're an Amherst fan, you could say, hey, what was that all about? And again, I can't ask Mike Leone anything more. That's not his decision. But he just kind of said in a roundabout way that there are things behind closed doors that he can't comment on. And I think that just kind of answers the question. We will have time for last call coming up next. It is your chance to shine here. Maybe we get some Bills news in the next few minutes. Always keep an eye on that. We'll review everything that's happened today so far. 866-4326, 585-866-4326 here on the WGR Rochester.
That's a fine.
That's a fine.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
Our thanks to head coach Mike Leone. Contentious is a strong word, but that was you had to ask the tough questions, right? So if you missed it, you can go back and listen in the Odyssey app as the Amherst will be home tomorrow night against Utica. 866-4326 is our phone number here on WGR Rochester. I love all the people that are getting upset with me online, too, about, oh, you're jinxing the Sabres. What are you doing? I'm just pointing out that they own San Jose. They do. At home, 21-4-1. All time, the Sabres in Buffalo. 7 o'clock tonight for the coverage here on WGR Rochester. But don't expect Logan Stanley, Luke Shen, Tanner Pearson. These are the three guys from Winnipeg. Why? Why not in the lineup? Visa issues. You kidding me? How many days has this been? Well, players traded from a Canadian team to a U.S. team must have proper U.S. work visas approved before they can practice or play. Now, the approval apparently could be a couple days, could be 14 business days. Is there not anything more government than that? Like, oh, yeah, maybe a couple days, maybe 14 business days. Why? This is just a simple transaction.
There's got to be a way to expedite it.
You would think. You would think, like, get an attorney on the phone or something. Like Lindy Ruff, when asked today, could not provide an update. He's waiting just like us. So anybody that's looking forward to Logan Stanley in the lineup tonight, and I myself am. I mean, that'll be fun when you get Tampa Bay or somebody. You don't need him against San Jose. Like, but these are the guys you traded for. And we talked to Mike Leone. Like, yeah, like it sucks that Isaac Rosen is that you moved on, but that's not the skill set the Sabres needed. You need these guys, particularly Stanley, like somebody that's going to go in and, all right, you're going to touch our best defender, well, then you got to deal with me, right? And by the way, I'm skilled too.
What he said during that game on Sunday, he was in the booth with Dan Dunleavy. He marked his calendar for a team that he's never played for the Sabres, and he's ready to play the Lightning the next time they play.
Well, he knows what's at stake here. So that's tonight, 7 o'clock, Sabres and Sharks. Let's give a minute to the lacrosse team here. Oh, wait a second. The Nighthawks fired their head coach, and they fired the assistant. So out, Mike Hassan, Pat O'Toole, and this is what an ownership change will do, right? And I remember we had President Seneca on with us, and they view this. Sure, it's an investment, but they view us as something bigger. I don't think it's something that they just bought and would forget about. They want the team to win, just like you or I. So this is a good thing because you know what this team has done this year? They have underachieved. But Gene, haven't you seen the goalie? Well, the suspension. Fine. You figure out a way. Like, it doesn't explain what happened Sunday, does it? This team just laid down against Calgary. That's bad. So they have work to do. Now, to make longtime Nighthawk fans feel happy about this, Randy Mearns is back. He's the interim head coach. He was an original Nighthawk from 1995. So let's see if that gives the team a spark. They're out in Vegas on Sunday. So we'll see. And then Vegas will come here the following week. Right now, Rochester's sitting alone in ninth place. 9 times. With a record of 5-6. The top 8 making the postseason. 866-4326. I think the highlight for me when it comes to the World Baseball Classic, and sure, you could say, hey, it was the United States. Did you know that was the first time the U.S. beat Mexico in World Baseball Classic play in 20 years? So good on the U.S. Sure, pitchers, you just hope stay healthy here. But what was kind of a cool sight was here overseas, I'm not even following. They cobbled together a team for Chechnya, right? And we think of Chechnya when it comes to hockey. And, well, they have a baseball team in the World Classic. And they have a team playing out in Japan. Seems like a mismatch, does it not? Well, they have an individual, and this guy comes out, starting pitcher, big long beard, just doesn't even look like an athlete. And he goes 4 2/3 scoreless innings against Japan. And he's coming off, and he's cracking a smile, and he is getting a standing ovation. It's really, really cool. And if you think that, okay, we love baseball the most here in the United States, no, it's Japan. It's over there. That's the number. We love football more than anything else. We love the NFL. But Japan, that's the NFL to them. That is the be-all, end-all. And they recognize a good performance. Here's the kicker, right? Guy's not an athlete. Sure, he's an athlete out there, but what's his full-time job? He's an electrician. An electrician in the World Baseball Classic, going 4 2/3 innings, and then a big smile. I mean, those are the stories that baseball should kind of prop up just a little bit, right? It's kind of like the emergency bug, the E-bug goalie going in and getting a win for, who was it, Carolina against the Maple Leafs. World Baseball Classic. Again, the analogy I will give you, you have fun stories like this, but in no way is Great Britain beating the United States. In no way is Chechnya beating Japan. It's when we get to the final, which is actually 1 week from today. And if you give me Japan, United States, and what happened last year, 3 years ago, with Ohtani on the mound at the end against Mike Trout, not a winner, Mike Trout. Stand by that take. That's the moment that we're all kind of waiting for. Syracuse today, 4:30, and again, will Adrian Autry make it to this time tomorrow if the team loses? 24 hours, I would say. I would say by noon tomorrow, you will have that announcement. That's only if, of course, the Orange actually do not get going today. Quick hitters from the NFL as we wrap up here. Final minutes of the show. Geno Smith gets traded to the Jets. Can you imagine you're Geno Smith? I mean, you're getting paid the same amount. So in that regard, you can't be upset. But it's, a 7th-round pick he gets traded for. And Geno Smith, at one point, was the hope of the Jets. And I give him all the credit in the world because quite often you see guys that get drafted and then they flame out. And he's made a nice career for himself. Compared to the next quarterback that was taken, or the quarterback actually right ahead of him in that draft being E.J. Manuel. E.J. Manuel, when he left Buffalo, that was it. Geno Smith is still in this league today, and I give him credit on that. Isaiah Pacheco going to Detroit. That'll be certainly something. The Patriots getting Packers receiver Romeo Doubs on a 4-year deal. The Bills today, your headlines, just creating cap space. New deal here for Dawson Knox. Don't know the numbers of savings, and we do know reportedly that it's $1.9 million for Tyler Bass that'll save against the cap. That does not mean that Bass necessarily will be the kicker. I would expect competition out at St. John Fisher this summer. Well, if you missed any of today's show, you can download the Odyssey app. It's free. You can go back and listen. You can listen to other great sports radio stations within our company, too, while you're there. Certainly want to listen to Show Up in the Bulldog. They're coming your way next. Sabre pregame tonight at 6 o'clock. My name is Gene Battaglia. We'll talk more Rochester sports tomorrow at 1 here on WGR Rochester.